This past week, the fishing was totally dependent on the weather. You picked the right day to be out here, you were a hero. You picked the wrong day, you were probably a zero. We'll get into the report in just a minute, but before we do, let's take a look at a few pictures from what some of the more successful anglers turned in from last week's catches. Then we'll do it. We'll get right into the report. Hi everyone, thanks for joining me. You're watching In Deep on the Delta. This is the weekly report for November 5th. And don't let the calm weather in the back fool you. I'm tucked in behind the old restaurant here at Paradise Point. If I was out on the point, you'd see how windy it was, and that is a cold, biting wind from the north. So we're going to get into the report, and we're going to talk about both stripers and largemouth bass. I've got Joe from Core Fishing going to do a little cameo with me here today, and he's going to talk about the stripers. I'll cover the largemouth bass. We're going to get into it right now, and I'm going to sound an alarm on a new invasive species that we have here in the Delta. It's called a golden mussel. It is a clam. The golden mussels have been found in the port of Stockton. They're also finding some of these out at Clifton Court. So they are spreading through the system. Why are these clams so dangerous? These are valve feeders, so they take up large quantities of plankton. These can dramatically affect the food chain of largemouth bass, stripers, salmon, bluegill, anything we have out here. So this is could be a very serious problem. And what I wanted to, I didn't want to sound an alarm, but I want everybody to be aware of this. We're going to be seeing some fish and game regulations, I'm sure, coming up when it comes to boat checks and things like this. So please do not discount what this golden mussel, what kind of a problem it can create. Let's try to comply with fish and game regulations. We're not going to be able to get rid of this thing, but maybe we can keep it under control. So keep an eye on that golden mussel problem, and we'll talk about what's happening as information comes in. Next on the agenda, Randy Graham from the Real Randy Graham Fishing Channel. He is hosting the first Hook to Clean event. And what Randy is a bank angler. He's primarily a panfish guy. I've had him on the show. Nice guy. And what Randy has done, he's put together a cleanup that is going to be held Saturday, 9/11/2024, this Saturday at 7 a.m. Come on out, bring a bag, bring some gloves. They're going to be doing some river cleanup, just walking the bank, cleaning up. And what Randy wants to do is maybe build up a little rapport with some of the farmers out here, so you guys that are bank bound can come out and continue to fish off the bank. I know we all know we've had problems with people littering, so on and so forth. So this is a way you can come out, meet some fellow anglers. There's going to be some prizes that are given away. I think Randy's going to give away a prize for whoever collects the most garbage. I know Marlon from Crappie Closets is going to be out here. He's going to be giving away some of his baits, and I'm going to be out here, and I'm going to grab a bag, and I'm going to do my part to clean up. Even as boaters, I know we got a lot of stuff that flies off the boat, winds up on the bank. So even if you're a boater, come out and support Randy, come out and support the bank anglers, and bank anglers, come out, show these farmers that you care about what's going on. Everybody out here is not throwing garbage all over the bank, and maybe you can build up a little rapport. Let's get into the report. Enough of that, and well, let's start off with river conditions. Water temperatures are dropping. We're mostly seeing 58 to 60 degrees, and that's been the report from around the Delta. I can say that the water around Paradise Point, especially up around White Slough, it is crystal clear. I'm talking 10, 12, 15 feet of viz. Most of the people that have been sending in reports have been talking about how clear the water is. There is still some 2 to 4 foot visibility down south, and we may get a little bit of cloudy water due to wind chop and the weather. But all in all, we're looking at water temperatures dropping, and the total package here, as far as weather goes, we have had fronts coming in and out daily. Nights have been colder, mornings have been colder, and evenings been colder. So what that's going to do is it's going to drop these water temperatures, and I'm hoping it doesn't drop them too dramatically, too quickly. But I'm telling you right now, I think this is the week where winter is kind of setting in. And those water temperatures that are dropping are not going to be good for these Florida strain bass out here. Look for the next few weeks as winter comes in, the largemouth bass to maybe start taking a little break from feeding, and so it's going to be tougher on the largemouth bass. I think it's going to be better for the striper guys. So, you know what? Let's get into that right now. I was out with Joe from Core Fishing last week, and Joe has been pretty successful out here the last couple of weeks, so we did a little segment on fishing for stripers. So right now, let's cut over to Joe from Core Fishing. We'll let Joe talk about stripers. All right, as advertised, I have my special guest, Joe from Core Fishing. Thanks for joining me again, Joe. And you've been out striper fishing, and you agreed to come on and talk about what you've been doing. You've been doing local stuff around Stockton. Let us know what's going on, what you've been doing to be successful.
Yeah, right now there's a lot of stripers in the San Joaquin Channel. Anywhere from lads all the way up to B&W area, there is a plethora of stripers out right now. Right now, you don't have to go far. My biggest advice would be find the bait, which is on both sides of the channel very often, and follow the diving birds. The birds right now will key you in on where the stripers are. You
gave me a hint last week, and maybe you can talk about when you see these boils, how you don't want to just pull up and fish the boil. You want to fish the outside, or you want to fish under it to get the bigger fish.
Yeah, so right now on the San Joaquin main channel, there's a lot of birds diving on bait, and the stripers are eating the bait as well. Right now, if you see stripers boiling on bait, more often than not, they're the smaller shaker fish, usually like 6 to 16 inches or so. But I've been finding that if I fish the outside, the perimeter of the boils, or like way off to the sides or way down deep, dropping a jig, I'll pick up those schoolie size, those 18 to 24 inch class fish that most people want to target.
And I know the other thing you talked about was you like throwing bigger baits, but this time of year you've been scaling down to jerk baits and smaller baits, paddle tails, just for the action. And you mentioned the schoolies from, let's say, 6 to 16 inches.
It comes down to a mindset thing. If you're throwing the big baits like the big top waters, the big glide baits, you have to know you're going for very few bites. And I know the quality of the size of the fish I'm around are pretty small, so I'm not throwing them because I'm going specifically for action. Where we're fishing at right now in the San Joaquin, there's a lot of fish. You're gonna wade through a lot of small ones to catch your keeper ones, but that's why I'm throwing those smaller baits right now.
What do you think these storm fronts are gonna do? They're gonna push the fish in?
I think right now what we're waiting for is more rain and more consistently cool weather. We've been having the cool weather, but I think we're waiting for some water to come in right now, and it's really going to make the stripers flood into the system. There's a lot of bait and there's some stripers going in the system, but a lot of the striper fishing I've been finding out west and north has been spotty. So what I mean by that is one day you'll be on them and the next day they'll just be completely gone. I think the influx of cold water will push these fish in much more consistently. Google Core Fishing and you'll see my YouTube channel, Instagram, Facebook. Make sure to follow them. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and I think Joe has a video of his last outing right there. I think you guys will recognize it locally, just out of Lads, up and down the channel, and they're catching some nice keeper size stripers. So thanks again, Joe.
Perfect.
Let's turn the camera off and we'll turn it back on if we catch a fish.
Sounds good.
All right, bye-bye. Let's get right into the largemouth bass. We'll talk about the bass hole tournament that was held out at Russo's on Sunday. 44 boats, took 19 and a half to win. I think 15 cashed a check. Most of the field was able to bring in a 5-fish limit, but I'll tell you, conditions were brutal. I did a lot of interviews that day, and just look at the faces on the anglers there and listen to what they went through during the course of that day. Gust up to 40-mile-an-hour winds. I saw guys coming across the track coming in, and it literally looked dangerous. So you guys that toughed it out, man, more power to you. You went out, you caught some fish. The bigger fish came using slower moving baits and primarily punching. So keep that in mind. These fish are really transitioning into the winter months, and they are starting to take slower moving baits. I got some correspondence from Joey Price from Priceless Fishing. He's been out both for striper and largemouth, and it's day to day for Joey. He has got some big stripers. He reports that there are some not great numbers, but there are some big stripers running around Liberty, and he's talking about fish in that 20, 30, maybe 40-pound class. They are not easy to find. When you hook them, they are not easy to catch. He's had a couple of them hooked on that he has not landed, but he's going to be prepared for those fish coming up in the next couple of weeks. And he's reporting that the fishing is solid out there, although it's not fast. I know the guys that are fishing up and down the Sacramento are still doing pretty darn good when the weather permits, but the weather, like we talked about at the beginning of the video, man, when it's been blowing out here, it's been blowing not 15, 18, 20, it's been blowing 25 to 30. So you have to watch the weather, and the weatherman is predicting that the winds are going to be lighter this next week. But boy, I don't think the river listens to the weatherman. Every time he says it's going to be 10 to 15, it winds up out here being 20 to 25. So make sure you watch the weather when you come out here. One of the things that Joey Price was saying was that for his largemouth bass, he has found that jerk baits are working for him, but smaller jerk baits. So I have found that same thing. Here's the first tip that I'll give you. If you are going to be out there throwing jerk baits, which I highly recommend, go from a 110 size down to a 90. You'll see that you'll get a lot more bites with that smaller jerk bait. Keep them in bait fish colors, white belly, maybe a blue back, gray back, maybe not so much flash in this clear water, but go to a smaller jerk bait. Don't think you have to jerk it around as hard as you did a couple of weeks ago. Little twitches, long pauses in between the twitches, you'll probably catch a lot more fish. That was the report from Joey. I also want to give a report from Mike. Mike is a regular contributor, and his report kind of mimics everything that everyone else was saying. Mike was out at Disappointment Slough. He got 59 to 60 degree water temps. I got a picture of Mike up there with a nice fish that he caught, and you look at the sky behind Mike in this picture, just beautiful. He picked one of the days to be out here and caught some fish, beautiful. He was out between about 6:30 in the morning to 11, picked up 5 solid keepers up to about 3 pounds, and while that wind was down and the water was flat, his number one bait was a popper. And that's another thing that, my son Nate and I have been out quite a bit, and we have found when we've gotten out there early enough and the water's flat, poppers have been picking up the bigger fish. So I want to thank Mike for sending in that report. And I also want to, I'm going to have a few things coming up the next week I'm going to be out on the water, but not as much as I have usually been. So I want all you guys to continue to send in reports. And for you guys that have not sent in reports, make sure you send me a report. And I don't care if you catch fish or not. Just let me know what you're doing out there. And you send those reports to S. Cooper. That's SCOOPER 9561032 at gmail.com. So the next couple weeks, make sure you are sending me those reports. All right, what have I found out here? And I've been out again probably, I think, 5 days in the last week. Didn't fish last weekend because that wind kind of kept me off the river. But we have found, or I have found, that the fish are still willing to feed. There are several bite windows through the day. When those bite windows are happening, you are a hero. When they cut off, for whatever reason, it is just hard to catch fish out here. And that's partially because of the falling water temperatures, and we have Florida bass. They don't like cold weather. But the bottom line is they know that winter's coming on and they have to feed. So in these bite windows, they are really feeding dramatically. I have starting to use a few worms, just unweighted when I can fish them. When the breeze is down, an unweighted worm is catching me fish. Jerk baits are still catching fish. My son Nathan has caught some nice fish this week on topwaters, and he has been using either a bubble walker or it's an old bub tosh kind of shower blow looking thing, and an old walking bait. We'll just call it a shower blow, or a Zara spook in bigger sizes, and those are picking up bigger fish. With that being said, guys, the next couple weeks is going to kind of separate the weekend guys from the hardcore guys. I'm going to be out here whether, rain, shine, whatever. I'll be continue to do my reports. Pick the right day, come out, enjoy the Delta, catch a few fish, because it's not going to be long before we're going to have some cold weather. It's not going to be the most pleasant time to be out on the water, and the fish are going to slow down, the largemouth bass. If you're a striper guy, you guys know what's going on. This is the weather you look for. You're going to come out. You guys tend to be in a little more covered boat sometimes, a little bit out of the weather. You guys are going to have a great time. But start thinking about that. It's getting into winter here, and things are going to start slowing down for largemouth bass. So with that being said, I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in with me to the report throughout the summer months. I hope you guys stay tuned in through the winter months with me. I'll be out here, and we're going to try to make it interesting. So with that, hope you guys get out, have some time on the water. Good luck. We'll see you on the river.